travel budgets for everybody has been decreased. So it's this virtual. It's I think it's a good thing, but it's second seat to face to face. And the Title VI updates that you guys all have, and then we have the Urban Indian Center to possibly give us an update on what's going on. Have the adjourned there, and then we'll wait until next month. So at this time, I like to turn the focus to our cultural reverence. We're going to give that time to Tatana Longhair from the Urban Indian Center. You know, we've had conversation, cultural aspects of what we see around us, and sometimes we see that cultural, you know, there's a head-on collision, and we had conversation about that, and I think Tatana is going to give us her perspective in terms of what is out there and how she relates this to some of the students that she teaches. So if you guys could mute yourself, let's put it that way, and then we'll get started. All right, go ahead, Tatana. It's you take the lead now.
Okay, I just want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to share my outlook on working with students and the youth of the community out here in Salt Lake City. How would I set up the PowerPoint? I have a PowerPoint to share. So how would I set that up?
Okay, Becky, you want to walk her through that? And
yeah, I just made you a presenter, so let me stop sharing my screen. And then it's just a matter of, you should be, in the top right, there should be a button for you to share your screen.
Oh, okay, got it. And do I just do presenter mode?
Yeah, I set it up so you should be a presenter now.
Okay. Can you see that?
I don't see it.
I don't see it either.
There we go.
Now we see it.
Oh, okay. All righty. So this is just traditional teaching in modern life, and this is just talking about me. I'm Titana Longhair from the Northern Ute tribe, and I'm from the Uncompahgre band. And I have over 20 years in Head Start field, 3 years in after school programs, 3 years in adult with special needs. And then currently right now I'm working with the Urban Indian Center with the youth as a youth and family coordinator. And I've been here for 2 years. And so here's a little spiel about me, just talking about when I was growing up, my grandparents and parents had two different styles of teaching about the world. And there's two different styles. My grandparents were patient and understanding, often providing clear expectations. And then in contrast, my parents could be impatient, especially in certain situations. And they sometimes offered rush instructions without clear explanations. So today, as educators, people who we hang out with, youth and stuff, I understand that we often feel the pressure of how we need to teach our students quickly. And the pace of the learning is fast and the flow of information is nonstop. Like I was talking to Dr. Foster about, we're always thinking every day, every hour, we're always thinking that we never take time to really stop and look around what we have, like the nature and stuff, being connected with that. And so now you just want to take a reflect on your childhood. How did you learn about the world around you? So what I do, as in reflecting on my teacher, is that I appreciate the importantness, and then I also consider about how the kids are feeling, like their emotional awareness, and how we can teach traditionally to have them learn more about their area. So basically what I'm saying is, how you were taught by your elders and parents is how we should teach our kids, which is like being patient. Back then, I know sometimes kids were not listened to. It was more like you don't speak unless you're spoken to. But nowadays, times have changed where it's important for us, especially for me, for instance, that I need to listen to the youth because sometimes they feel unheard. And then that makes me have flashbacks in my day where I kind of felt like I wasn't unheard by my parents when I tried to explain something or ask something. It was more like, no, no, we got this to worry about. So my parents were too busy trying to make money and make sure that we're taken care of, me and my siblings. And so maybe that's wasn't they didn't have the time to come and explain things to us. And but when I'd be with my grandparents, they would go and explain things like, well, you don't want to be, you don't want to go and bother that bee's nest. And it's like, why? And then they give the explanation of why. Well, if you bother the bee's nest, this is what's going to happen. You're going to get stung. You're not going to feel great. You're going to have to go and deal with pain. But, and so that's the time I feel that we need to take time with our students, is to give that explanation to them. And with my own kids being in school, I kind of seen how education is rushed with the kids, whereas teachers are sometimes frustrated with some native kids because they just don't get it. And it's like, well, you have to learn. How do they learn? How do any of us learn? Like for me, I'm a virtual person, so I need to, not virtual, visual person, so I need to see it, and you need to show me, then I'll understand. Along with describing what you're doing. So then we also talk about, elders ask us about our feelings. How do we feel? And then they would advise us, if we're not feeling good, go outside and connect with the area that we're in, like go walk in nature, touch the leaves, walk barefooted. A lot of people, there's been like research done. If you're feeling kind of off, to go outside and walk barefooted on the grass, and then you get reconnected with earth and then get centered. And another thing that I look at is that a lot of our kids now spend a lot of time on screen, and then they have more stressors than what we had back in the day. So when I was talking to Dr. Foster, I said, back in the day, if we were going to get bullied, it'd be at school on the playground, and that's how you dealt with bullies. But nowadays, where you have your telephone, or you have your cell phone, you have your laptop, tablets, whatever, you have social media, different apps that kids could get bullied on. And sometimes it's hard to track where your bully comes from, because they can have like a fake profile, and things are said really, things are said harsh on the internet. And whereas us, we dealt with it face to face. And so I understand that a lot of the youth nowadays have that extra stress on them. And when I teach my youth culture class, I do let them know that I'm aware they have more stressors than what I did. And so what I do to help connect with them is just ask, okay, so if you're feeling bad, what do you do? And then they talk about parents, like, oh, go to your adults or go to your parents. And I says, okay, good. But what if you're not able to go to a parent? Then where do you go then? And some said trusted adult, and some other kids were just like, didn't know who to go to. So just sharing them about like just sharing with them the the saying of it takes a village. And I told them that they were in the process of doing that. If they can't go to their parents, then go to another relative, go to an uncle, go to a grandma. If not, then go to a family friend. So that's your little village there. And so when I told the kids that, they were just kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, we do have other people we could go to. So just kind of relating that to them. Next is my, okay, next is the exploring potential traditional teachings that we can blend together to support our youth. So traditionally, we learn to be aware of our surroundings. We received explanations why we cannot do this or why we should do this. The individuals who taught us were very patient. And how can we adapt these teaching styles to modern times? So for positive mental health, one example is connecting with nature involves taking walks, collecting plants, and observing animals. Back in the day, say like before we even had technology, back when we were living in teepees and hogans, when we were living in those, that our parents would let us go out and talk or go out and take part of nature. And then they would also explain, like, have you watch animals and see how they behave, how their systems work in their families. One thing that when I used to work with the Indian Head Start program, I noticed that we had a lot of gophers. And so the kids and I would just sit out there, we'd watch the gophers, and we'd see one pop up, one hole, and see us and make a little noise. And then next thing you know, we see another gopher pop up in another hole making some noise. And so the kids were just like, hey, they're talking to each other. And it's like, yeah, they are. And it's kind and I go, so what do you think they're doing? You know, what are they talking about? And then we see another gopher pop up somewhere else and they were talking and they're like, one of the kids was just saying, they're telling each other about they see us. And then it's like, yeah, you know, that's right. They're talking. And what I found out, what I researched was that gophers have a language that describe different things, like a bird that might be a prey or something that's out of the norm. They have a little language for that. And so I brought that back to the kids and I said, hey, did you know that they do have their own language? It's like us. We have our own languages. We talk to each other. You might have a bestie and you have a certain word you might know, and then nobody else knows. So that's one of the connections I make with them. And then the next one is learning patience. Learn a traditional craft and pass it on to an elder as a sign of respect. And so when I teach classes about beadworking, we did a lazy stitch session with Alpine School District, and it took a lot. The kids were just like, oh my gosh, this is hard. And I said, no, once you get into the rhythm of it, it'll be easier and easier. And then as you're beading, we've got to have a positive vibe. If we don't have a positive vibe, then our beads won't lay right, our thread will get tangled up because we're too busy thinking about either we had a bad day or something happened before we came to class. And I said, so if we think positively, clear our mind and bead and just concentrate and take your time, it'll turn out. And so at the end of the class, one child that I've noticed that was impatient actually finished her bracelet and it looks really cute and nice. And I was like, oh, cute. Now I was teasing him about, now you can make a whole bunch and go sell them. And so we're just joking around about that. Everyone learns differently, and it's important to recognize how we teach and how they learn. So that's relating to your students. I do a lot of visuals with my classes that I've taught before, is to show them. And if they don't get the project or the craft that I'm doing, going back to beadwork, I'll show them this is how you do it. just you push the needle and you make sure it lines up with your beads so it can lay down, look nice and stuff. Then also another way that I relate to them is if it's younger kids, I ask them like what kind of cartoons do they watch, because I have grandkids, and so they'll tell me, oh well, I like SpongeBob. Hey, I like SpongeBob too. Patrick is funny, does crazy things. And then with the older kids, I ask them, so what kind of music do you listen to? And then they'll tell me, and I was like, hey, I know that song, I like that one. And I think relating to them on a different level really helps with connecting with them. And I think the more they trust you, they're willing to do more, like work more, they'll do things for you. And also asking for guidance, being aware of your surrounding, recognizing teachable moments, remembering the past, being patient with youth, and taking the time to pray. And so there's nothing wrong with us as teachers going back to our traditional teachings where our elders and our parents and whoever around us taught us to, pray for yourself, like that you're able to pray for the students that they're willing to learn from you and that they take in what you learn that helps them grow in their education. So the next one is just example of my work with the youth, teaching awareness of their surroundings. So we had human trafficking presentation, and she gave a presentation to the youth, and it was based on their ages. And so the presentation was catered to the youth. And it just talked about like how we need to be aware of our surroundings, of our friends, of people, the signs of maybe your friends in trouble, or the signs of maybe someone trying to take advantage of you. And so relating that back to our traditional ways, going back to our elders and parents, they taught us that we needed to be aware of our surroundings. So like, for example, when I'd go into the mountains with my grandparents to chop wood, I'd have to make sure that I'm not in the way of where the tree is going to fall. So I had to pay attention to that. I also had to pay attention to where I was stepping because we were in an area that's rocky and I didn't want to twist my ankle. And then plus I had to help load the wood from where we chopped the tree down to the vehicle. And so the next one is feeling depressed, sad, do not engage with family, feeling less important. And then this one is teaching how to look for medicine plants and growing your own plants and explaining, oh, typo, we have when we use them and why. So with that one, I did a presentation about the sage plant to the youth, and it was kind of cool and it was kind of funny is that I asked, okay, so where do we get sage? And so one little girl raised her hand up and I said, yeah, where do we get sage? She goes, from the trading post. Then I kind of laughed. I was like, yeah, that's true. You can get it from the trading post. However, if you don't want to pay for your sage, you can simply go into the mountains and look for it and you can get it. And that way you don't spend any money. And then plus, you're the one that picked it. So you picked it with good feelings, with good vibes. Then I just explained some tribes, they offer that plant like tobacco or some other type of thing. They offer it and tell that plant, I'm taking you so that way you can help me and my family, and whatever explanation they want to give. The next one's teaching patience, respect, and feeling pride. Teaching beadwork, traditional crafts, explaining why these items were made. So like my good example is dream catchers. If you're going to make a dream catcher, teach about the history, where it came from, and why they used it. It wasn't only just to catch bad dreams, but it was also used in ceremonies. And they had different ways of using the dream catcher. And then I also talked to them about if you have you bead your craft or you make your craft, then you give it away because it's your first one. You give it to somebody. And so this is teaching them kindness, respect, and also giving. Overall positive being, making a safe place for them. What is shared stays in the room. And so some things that we talked about was burning sage, cedar, sweetgrass, and when do you burn this? And we also did a shoe story, which is the kids designed a shoe with their own little story. And then we also made vision boards. So we talked about, okay, so back then in a day, our elders talked about, well, this is the future that I see for you. And so now with us as teachers, we can tell the kids, okay, so what do you see yourself as? Where are you going in the future? So we made vision boards, and it was pretty cool. A lot of them said they wanted to travel to different powwows. They wanted to go to school. They wanted to learn how to do beadwork or learn how to make a ribbon skirt and stuff like that. We did, I think we did 6 months, a year, and then 2 years. And then we also made our own stories. We listened to tribal stories, and then we made our own story that taught a lesson. And so one little boy made a story about how kids need to pay attention and listen to when somebody tells you something. If not, then consequences happen. Then we also did comparing power music with today music. I did a presentation about power music. So one song that I related is that a round out song that was composed by a singer who lost his mom. And so I compared it to a sad song of a lot of kids listen to. And I said, so you can tell the difference between that the rhythm is different than the modern song, but yet you get the same feeling. You get the same feeling of sadness, but then happiness, and then a tone that you want to move to. Um, and so that's all I have. So Dergoyak, which means thank you, and you. Is there any questions or anything like that?
Tekoryak. Tekoryak. Thank you.
Totona.
This is very, very appropriate in terms of getting our day started. Give us an opportunity to balance, if you will. Um, and sometimes we forget our teachings, you know, and I think this gives us a chance to reflect. And for me, it's flashbacks. So I'd like to thank you, Toryak, for that. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. Well, let's move on. Dustin, I think I see
Yeah.
your name here, and what I'll do is I'll mute myself and uh, go from there. Hey, thank you.
Hey. Well, let's do some stuff on this one. I can move that. All right. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate you sharing those words with us, and the investment that you're putting into the youth there at your work, and really thank all of you that are with Title VI or with just in education that want to support Native students and their journeys and things. I really believe that it's a calling to to do what you do. I think it's a calling to work in education and to inspire youth. And I think it's a calling because you're serving others, you're putting others before you, and you want to make sure that they have a better experience, or maybe an easier road, or at least some type of um, some type of news before they head out, so they know what our youth are getting into and the world they're going into and the things that they can expect. And that's important. But also what you're teaching these kids is that they can look back at their their cultures, they can look back at their communities, they can look back at their families and say there's help there, and there's strength there. Um, I remember sitting in a on a panel, and I was there with a couple law professors, and one of the law professors, she said something that stuck in my mind that I'll always remember. And it was a lot of native kids that were trying to get into law school, and she's like, just remember, a lot of people will look at your culture and look at where you come from and say, those are obstacles that you have to overcome to succeed. And she said, don't think of them that way. Your culture, your language, your community, your songs, your dances, those aren't obstacles. Your creation stories, the stories that you learn to make good decisions, those aren't obstacles. Those are actually your power. Those are your superpowers to help get you through those times that are coming for you ahead. And so I'm just very grateful that there's people like you all online that are willing to put your time in to make sure that our students know that they can do it and they can succeed, and that their background is a strength that they can use for them to accomplish whatever they'd like. And it kind of rolls into what I'm trying to share with you today. It says American Indian Services. I don't know how many people have heard about American Indian Services. I think the subtitle, Scholarships for Native Americans, that's what brings a little more clarity to it. But we're getting into spring, and a lot of you have seniors in your program, seniors at your schools are getting ready to move forward and to to start their journey and to start preparing themselves for the work and careers that they'd like to have in the future. And I was trying to round up all these different scholarship sites and websites that I could share with all of you and talk about the qualifications for funding or the requirements that they have. And I realized that they're all pretty similar. And my wife just happens to be the director for American Indian Services, which is a scholarship organization for Native youth that are pursuing undergraduate degrees or work in the trades or uh, and and so I thought I'll ask her what she shares, and then we'll talk about what it means to your Native students. I remember I grew up on the Navajo reservation at Tohatchi High School, and I had a really good career counselor. His name was Frank Katnig, and he was just a wonderful person. And he would, in the summer times, on his own money, he would travel to all these different colleges around the country and tell them, "Hey, you saved 3 spots for me and my students. I'm going to send you 2 students here that can be successful here. I can do this. I can do that. How many students do you need? I got them." And he created these wonderful relationships with universities around the country and pretty much helped us get into the schools that we wanted to go to. And I remember I had applied for some Ivy League schools when I was in high school, and I was kind of a nerd. I had a pretty good GPA, decent ACT score, and I was a decent athlete. I thought I would participating in student government. And I thought I had a pretty good chance at getting into these schools, but I didn't know if they really recruited. But I applied to them anyway. And one of them, one school offered me a track scholarship. Then I blew my knee out, and they took that away. But then another school, let accepted me, and they wanted me to go to an interview, and I'd have to drive over there, and I pulled up that university's website, and I looked at the tuition costs, and my parents were silversmiths, and I remember seeing tax when my parents did their taxes. I remember there were a couple years where my parents' taxes were like $9,000 or $10,000 for the year. Like that's how much they made that whole year, and so they didn't have to pay taxes on it because they made so little. But I was thinking this, and I was like, man, there's no way I can afford to go to this school. I can't afford to go to these colleges, so I'm not even going to bring it up, you know. And so I chose a school up here. I got into BYU, and one semester, the Navajo Nation Scholarship Office came by and just going over requirements for us about how to maintain that scholarship. And she goes, "Why did you choose to come here?" We were talking, and she goes, "Did you not go anywhere else?" And I told her, and it was this. I said I declined one offer because I just couldn't afford. I didn't think I could afford it. And she goes, "Well, Navajo Nation Scholarship, we'd cover 80% of those costs if you would have accepted it." And I had no idea. I had no idea, and in hindsight, everything worked out for me. I met my wife. I met a lot of you here. You guys have all had a great influence on my life and offered me a lot of encouragement. So I don't really have any regrets, but I wish I did have more of those answers at the beginning on the funding that's available to help us help get the education our kids want. And so I'm going to share a little bit from American Indian Services and the requirements that they have and what they do. And hopefully, if you have seniors in your Title VI groups or in your schools, this information will help you understand a little bit more about what they need to have a complete application, to have the best shot at securing funding, to go to college or trade schools or whatever they'd like. So I thought this would be appropriate for all of you. And this is pretty broad strokes. But I hope it's a good enough start for you to get things ready and to help your students as they prepare to go to college. Um, so American Indian Services, they're local. They're here and currently located in Lehi, Utah. But we'll go over what their vision statement is and what their mission statement is and their scholarship programs. And I'll share with you a few other scholarship organizations that have similar requirements and have similar mission statements and have similar goals to ensure that our Native students can attend universities and colleges that will help them accomplish their career goals that they'd like. Uh, there are a lot of good organizations out there. There's Native Forward, American Indian College Fund, Native American Graduate Center. There's a ton, and they all their funding is a little different, and they're earmarked a little different. Um, some only some only fund students who go to tribal universities or colleges. Some only do undergraduate. Some will do vocational or trade school funding. Some will do graduate funding or professional funding. So just be aware of the type of funding that your student needs. And for all of you, just be undergrad or trade school or vocational schools like that because they're just getting out of high school. But if they could reach out back to you, I mean, I maintained my relationships with my high school counselors for a long time, and and they were able to point me in good directions even after I graduated. So hopefully this information is helpful to you. But it says American Indian Services empowers Native American youth and adults to achieve economic sovereignty while honoring cultural heritage. Um, and looking at our cultural reverence, it's not something that you have to leave or check at the door. It's not a coat you take off and you don't have to put it back on until your culture goes with you everywhere. And so I'm really happy that there's people teaching their youth about their culture and let them know that they can take it with them, that it can be a tool to help them. It's not something that you leave at home and then go to college for. You take that with you, and you can use it to strengthen those around you too. American Indian Services provides and funds comprehensive educational pathways and programs, including college scholarships. Um, and for American Indian Services, they do undergrad, so associates and bachelor's degrees for college scholarships, vocational and trade school training, workforce development, entrepreneurial support, and that bridge traditional values with emerging opportunities. So, AIS or American Indian Service, they realize that maybe the university or college setting isn't for everyone. Maybe there's students that want to go straight into the workforce but need a certificate or some type of training to allow them to work in those areas like welding or hair, beauty, things like that. And so this is just let you know that there's scholarships out there for that. It doesn't have to be a purely academic education experience. It can be someone that just teaches you that trade and gets you in that workforce to help you start, you know, accomplishing the goals that you set. Let me move this out of the way, see if I can. Um, um, so like I said, this is a little different than a lot of scholarship organizations. Not a lot of scholarship organizations will fund trade and or vocational degrees, but this is a good one that you can look at. College and trade scholarship programs. They provide undergraduate for Native American Alaska Native students with financial support to attend college, maintain enrollment, and graduate. Scholarship awards are based upon up to one half of tuition and need for the term of the students applying for. Scholarships awards are sent directly to the institutions for Native students. Okay. I didn't, it's good to know that, these are out there for you to help you pay for school. Like I told you, my family didn't make a lot of money, and and maybe I was a little oblivious to it at the time because none of my friends' family made a lot of money either, and we were kind of all in the same boat. Um, but it was such an amazing. It's great to know that this funding is available to everyone. Let's see. Oh, I got to move this again. Um, Now, American Indian Services does have certain required documents. Okay, and a lot of these Native American and American Indian scholarship organizations or funding organizations, they will help you to go to school, but they also have to keep books, and they're subject to audits, and so they have to find ways to ensure that the funding they're securing is going to fund the types of programs and individuals that their donors would like, and because there are so many Native students that want to get a higher education, there has to be ways to make sure or to distribute these funds in an equitable way. And so there are some requirements that you need to follow. For American Indian Services, they require that you go to an accredited university, college, junior college, or technical or trade school. Okay, so it just can't be, uh, your uncle Bob has a beauty school in his garage, and you can get funding for it. It doesn't work that way. It has to be an accredited school to go to. A lot of these scholarships require that you be an enrolled member of a fairly recognized tribe, American Indian or Alaska Native tribe, and it would stop there. But there are some, like American Indian Services, that also recognize direct descendancy, right? If you can, and I think American Indian Services, they recognize the descendancy up to a grandparent of the student. So as long as one of your grandparents is enrolled in a federally recognized tribe, and you can show how you're descended from that person, you can be eligible for this. And the reason why they do this is because enrollment criteria for tribes is different. Some require a quarter, some require an eighth, some require more than half. And so it's really difficult for these students to become eligible for their own tribal scholarships. And so it's good that there's some organizations like AIS that will honor your direct descendancy of an enrolled member too. Again, like I said, there are Native American scholarship organizations that fund graduate work like master's and PhD programs or professional degrees. Um, but AIS, they fund undergraduate students. Okay, and as long as you don't have more than 150 credits or semester credits or 210 quarter credits, you should be eligible to help pay for your associate's or bachelor's degrees. Um, Also, they have different scholarships for full-time or part-time status. We recognize that Not a lot of students can go to school full time and make ends meet, right? Pay their rent, pay their utilities, pay for gas, insurance, things like that. So if you can be full time or part time, but you need a minimum of 6 credits to be eligible for these scholarships. Also, you need a minimum GPA of 2.25 for at least American Indian Services. I was looking at Native Forward and American Indian College Fund, and their GPA is 2.0. So, it's certainly within the range of most Native students that need funding to go to school. But one of the most important things you can do is complete your FAFSA application, your federal student aid application. And to get that completed, the parents of your students, they need to hurry and go in and get their taxes done. And when they get their taxes done, they can apply for FAFSA, and that makes them eligible for something called a Pell Grant. And a Pell Grant isn't a loan. It's money to go to school on. It's tax dollars that are given back to those that qualify for it to help pay for tuition. And so getting that Pell Grant, it was one of those things that got me through college, right? I had a tribal scholarship and I had a Pell Grant. And so that helped me, I still had to work, but at least it covered the majority of my school expenses and my working, just covered my spending money and gas money if I needed to go anywhere. But we'll talk about each of these. Um, AIS and a lot of Native organizations, they do require a photo of the applicant. A lot of donors, they want to see who they're funding. Um, they require proof of heritage. It can be a certificate of Indian blood, or like I said, if you have a certificate of Indian blood of up to a grandparent, and you can show that you're one of your parents is their kid and you're descendant from them, that would be very helpful too. To show descendancy. Um, you will need a tuition billing statement. So they need something from the school that tells you how much their need is and how much tuition is, so that the organizations can evaluate your need, what you're bringing in, and what the school's requirements are. So it helps the scholarship organization figure that out. You're going to need a current transcript. If you know kids that are already in college, maybe their first or second year in college, make sure they have access to their transcripts. In high schools, all your kids in high schools, make sure that they get transcripts. It'd be nice if they're certified. However they do that, back in the dinosaur days when I was in school, they had an embosser and they just squeeze it on that paper and put a little stamp and someone signed it. Everything going digital these days. I don't know what an official transcript looks like or what they show, but look into that and make sure you have those available for your students. And for some scholarship organizations don't even require an official transcript, but they do require a transcript. Like I said, you need to get your students as soon as you can. If you have seniors, make sure as soon as they can, their parents get their taxes done so they can start working on that FAFSA application. Most scholarships organizations will require an essay about where you're from, who you are, what you want to go into, why you want to do it. How is it going to help you? How is it going to help your family? How is it going to help your community? Right. And, for a lot of these organizations like American Indian Services, if you are granted tuition scholarship, um, they would require some type of thank you letter, and this is something that they send out to their donors just to let their donors know that the funds that they're collecting, the funds that are being used here are being used in the right way, and that they're helping students pay their tuition and fulfill the goals that they've set out to accomplish. Um, They have deadlines. Just- this is American Indian Services deadlines, but scholarships, those applications are opening up May 1st, and they're only open for a couple months, right? May, June, July. So it's really just May, June because it's July 1st. They have 60 days to get these accomplished. They do have January, like mid-year awards, and they have their own deadlines too. But just be aware that all these scholarship organizations, you just can't apply whenever you feel like it. If you need funding for fall, there's a deadline for fall. If you need funding for spring, there's a deadline for spring. So make sure you and your students are aware of those deadlines so that you can get out there and make sure you're one of the first in line. We This is just a little more detail on applying for these scholarships. Read through the requirements. Make sure you're eligible. Some of them have the fine print is, hey, we only fund these types of schools, or we only fund um, uh, actually enrolled students, or we only fund people with a certain GPA or a certain ACS or SAT score. So make sure you're eligible before you apply. Again, make sure there's you calendar those deadlines. You're aware of those deadlines, and that you're set up to turn in those applications when they're due, to give you the best chance at receiving an award. Uh, Look through that application and look through what documents that they require from you, so that you can find those, locate those, because some of them may take time. You can, especially government documents, tribal government documents, you'll need to send a request of some sort, whether it be online or some paper application. But it's going to take them time to get those documents back to you. Just remember, these are governments. They're not just little community boards, or they're not like just a committee that sits around and does this. These are tribal governments are governments. They have policies, they have procedures, and they operate at their government speed. They operate at their community speed. So be aware of what that speed is, so that you know when to ask for things, so that you can receive the things that you need um, to complete an application. Um, as far as essays go, you can use the same essay for a lot of different scholarship organizations. You just change who it's to, and if you're mentioning their scholarship specifically inside that essay, change that to match the application you're applying for. But you can reuse all these things to help you apply and make things easier, so your students don't feel like they have to write a new essay for every scholarship they're applying for. Okay, they can refurbish their essays and use them for multiple things. Again, there's donor letters that are sometimes required, where a student can express, their gratitude and just say something, thank you for providing this funding for me. Thank you. It's going to help me accomplish this thing I've set out to get this degree. It's going to relieve the financial burden that for my parents, for me, right, and help me concentrate on my studies without just being worried about what to eat, and am I going to be able to pay for school next semester. So just be aware that there's tricks to do these. Uh, just getting a little bit more specific about these requirements. A good photo, make sure it's current. I think all of us have good high quality smartphones that could take a high pixeled picture. I mean, if you have a better camera, please use that. But a lot of them, they repost these things, they print these things out. The better quality the photo is, the more able they are to use it on different forms of media, whether it be online or paper media. But a high resolution photo would be good. Um, Make sure it's not a selfie. You don't want to see part of your arm and your face far away. Just have a friend take that photo. Make sure you're the only one in it. Make sure it looks like a professional photo. We want to turn in the best application we can, and that includes that photo. So make sure you get that done and have somebody help you with that. A certificate of Indian blood, and you need to get that at least 1 year prior to graduation sometimes. Sometimes it takes tribes a whole year to process these before they send them out. Sometimes it takes a couple weeks, sometimes it takes a couple months. The best thing to do is request those certificates of Indian blood from your student's tribe as soon as possible, so that that's not something they're waiting on. You could also use an official photo ID, tribal ID, and those are different. those are different for every tribe out there. So just make sure it's the right one. It's the official form that your student's tribe endorses and gives out. Uh, a proof of descendancy, you could show a CIB and birth certificate, CIB of the relative that was enrolled, and you can show birth certificates of how you're connected to them through your dad or through your mom. But make sure you get these. That's your proof. It's sad that natives are required to carry proof or of Indian blood. But it's also the way it's set up, and it's the norm now. So make sure your all your kids have their CIBs, official ID, or some type of proof of descendancy to uh, help them to qualify for this funding. That tuition billing statement needs to come from your school that they're attending, and you can go to the financial aid office, or sometimes they call them the bursar's office, and or your registration office, and say, hey, can you print me out how much tuition costs for a full-time student or for a part-time student? Maybe maybe there's a deadline or that's past that from your school, that's past the deadline of the scholarship agency that you're looking to. If that's the case, go there and go to your university anyway and say, hey, I know you don't release these yet, but I need this released earlier, because I'm applying for a scholarship. And most of those bursar offices will write you a letter with an estimated cost of what your tuition is going to be for you. So you can get that done, even if that they don't normally send those out till after the scholarship organization's deadlines. You can get an estimate statement from that university or trade school, so that the money is available when they actually do start school. Um, AIS is different. It can be when it comes to transcripts, it can be an official transcript, or it can be an unofficial transcript. What's important is that it has your name on it. It has your student's name on it, okay? We have to have some way to connect the student with the grades that are being shown, okay? So, the more information that's not totally private, and but it should be on that transcript. Just don't show grades in the school, and uh, your student's name needs to be on that transcript too. I know at Maple Mountain, when I requested my kids' transcripts or something, the transcript they sent out actually had a photo of my kids on that transcript. So it might be a thing, at least in Utah, where when you get a transcript, there's an accompanying photo with it. But don't use that photo for your required photo. Make sure it's a high quality photo. But it's nice that they put it on transcript, so you can say this transcript belongs to this student. Here's their photo. Here's their name. But make sure their name is located somewhere on that transcript, so that the organizations can know that it's the right person with the right grades. Um, Essays, make sure you answer all the essay prompts and questions. Uh, you know, Sometimes, like, I said you can reuse essays on things, but you can reuse them to the extent that they cover all the questions and requirements for the scholarship you're applying for. You know, you can have a really good story, and you can give really good background, and deliver a wonderful dream of what you want to accomplish in life. But if you're not hitting all the essay prompts or questions asked, that scholarship organization can't score your application correctly, right? I have the greatest story, but if I'm not answering the questions that are being asked of me, then what good is sharing that story, right? There are so many Native students out here that are applying for funding and financial help for college. These organizations have to be able to separate who gets the scholarships and who don't, or who doesn't. And part of that 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 separation is who followed the instructions, who completed everything on this application the way we've asked, who answered all the questions so that they can get full points for their essay score, and make it easy. Question one, make it obvious. Question two, Make it obvious, make it easy for these people that review scholarship applications. Make it easy for them to want to award you. And the best way possible is just making sure you're fulfilling everything that they're asking. After when you make sure you have all those question prompts and answered, include your compelling story in there. Be honest. Um, and I like this last bullet point. It says, ask a friend or a family to tell you about yourself. Take from their words if needed. When I applied to law school, I was brought up not to brag about things I accomplished, right? Not to toot your own horn, they say, not to be that way. And so my essays were really weak because I was relying on people that wrote, letters of recommendation for me. I was relying on them to highlight my accomplishments. I was relying on them to highlight the things that I was able to accomplish. But on my own personal essay, I didn't highlight them myself, and it resulted in a pretty weak essay. So I would encourage you as Title VI coordinators or educators to let these students know what they're good at, what they've accomplished, and encourage them to write about those accomplishments and share those accomplishments in a way that they feel comfortable, but also in a way that highlights what they've been able to do and highlight things that will give confidence to these scholarship organizations to help with tuition and things like that. Again, I emphasize be truthful. I was just watching ESPN the other day, and there was this coach. He got, I'm not going to say his name or his college, but he got hired, and then they did a check on his resume. He said he played like 3 years of college football, and they found out that he never did. you know and he said he had a master's in this and this, and they found out that he attended a couple classes but never graduated. So people find out. So be honest, be truthful, and make sure you've completed all those things that are being asked of you. Thank you, Leonard. There's nothing wrong with showing gratitude. You know, um, I was always very grateful for the organizations that helped fund me and my college experience. Um, it it was just one less thing to worry about, knowing that my books and tuition were going to be paid for, and all I had to do is cover rent or maybe cover spending money. But let them outline what they're using this. Hey, thank you. I use this for tuition. I use this to help me cover books. I use this to help me, you know, eat and put a roof over my head. Thank you so much for allowing me to do this, because, just like me, and probably like a lot of us on this call right now or on this virtual link right now, our parents weren't there they probably wanted to help us, and they probably wanted to provide for us, but they just weren't in a position to do it, and so many of our students are our first generation college students. Me and my brothers and sisters, we're first generation college students, and my parents just didn't understand the process about how to apply to college and how to fill out applications and things. And so sharing these things with you so that you can have some idea about the things that you can talk to your students' parents about and the students themselves about. Some things that you should know, right? There are some places that offer graduate funding, like, like if you want to get a master's or a PhD. American Indian Services is not one of those organizations that does at this time. So, be aware of that, and have your students get them used to looking for funding that does cover the things they want to do. Currently, AIS only funds for undergraduate and trade schools, but also available Indian Health Service scholarships. Um, I've met a lot of Native kids that were able to pay for medical school and dental school through Indian Health Services. It does require a payback, but it's not a cash payback. It's, if for however many years that they fund you to get your degree, they require that many years of work after. And, and that's not always a bad thing, and you complete dental school, you can go work for IHS and provide dental services, but also that builds experience, right? It's something that that's something else that you can put on your resume if you decide not to stay in the Indian Health Services, if you want to go in more of the private practice areas, but you have that experience with you on that. American Indian Science and Engineering Society, ASIS. If any of your kids want to go into the sciences, that's any of the sciences, biology, physical science, chemistry, physics, math. Um, if they're really interested in those things, American Indian Science and Engineering uh, Society, ASIS, that's a great program to connect your students with. American Indian Graduate Center, uh, they provide graduate funding and for law school, for master's degrees, for PhD. So be aware of those. Those are out there too. And the college or university that these students are applying to. I know there's been a lot of DEI cuts and multicultural office cuts federally and through the state here, but just remember, not every state is like that. Um, some states still allow these types of offices in their state schools, and there's funding associated with these offices that they can share with their students. So, make sure they ask, not just for tuition assistance, maybe for books assistance, maybe for housing assistance. Your schools want to fund you and they want you to come to school there, but their funds may be limited, but they still may have stuff for your student that will help them out in some way. I remember my brother, he had a lot of scholarships, but he also got some scholarships where, because like I said, my family didn't have a lot of money, and he got like a $300 scholarship, and I was like, "What are you gonna do with that, man?" And he was like, "Shoot, I want to buy me some clothes. I need some clothes," you know. And so everything helps, for that. Um, Again, for a lot of schools and organizations, for a lot of organizations that provide scholarships, they want your educational institution to be accredited. Make sure it's accredited. Okay. Who needs to fill out the tuition statement? It can be done by anyone at the school you're applying to, the bursar's office, the financial aid office, your advisor, or that university's or that tech school's American Indian office. If they can, anybody can provide that. Different scholarship organizations might require something different, but remember, there's a lot of offices and universities that can provide that information to help you. I addressed this already, but if I can't register until after the deadline, what can I do, or can I turn it in late? So you can request a letter from your school stating an estimated cost of tuition, right, for what you're applying for. So you can just send in what you can, send in what's available to you, and when all else fails. But you can get, some organizations do recognize these cost estimate letters rather than the actual cost to get you going. Let's see. Um, this something you need to be aware of. Okay. Um, Some universities, especially in the last few years, have been advertising something called free tuition for American Indian students, but some that's actually true. Okay, some of it you have to read the fine print on. Um, Sometimes the school only offers a free application right fee, where they waive your application fee. I remember even in the 90s, early 90s, late 80s, when I was going to college, you know, to apply for school was like $50 application fee. But nowadays they're in the hundreds. So having that waived is still a big deal so you can apply. But remember, that's an application fee. That's not free tuition. Also, when they say free tuition, they may just mean something called last dollar or gap scholarships, meaning they'll cover what your tribal or private scholarships don't cover. Okay. Um, Often these gap or last dollar scholarships, they don't cover housing, they don't cover meals or books or fees, unless they specifically say so. So when we say, let me describe this a little more. Let's say one of your students applies for to a university, and that university says, we're going to cover your tuition. Okay, you're like, oh man, that's awesome. That's like, I don't know how much tuition is that. Let's make it, let's say 3,000. Let's say tuition's 3,000 a semester to go to this college. And they say, we'll giving you a free a tuition scholarship. And you're like, yes, this is awesome. And then you get a tribal scholarship for 2,000. Okay. When your school receives that $2,000 scholarship from your school, in gap or last dollar scholarship situations, the school will subtract what they're offering you from what you're receiving from somewhere else. So if at first they said, hey, we're giving you a full tuition scholarship and that covers $3,000 worth of tuition, if your student receives a tribal scholarship for $2,000, that school will subtract $2,000 from the scholarship they offered your kid. Okay. And then if you get a Pell Grant on top of it, they'll use that Pell Grant to cover the rest of the tuition. So it ends up that the school doesn't actually cover any of your cost. They just cover what you cannot cover. But if you can cover it, you're not going to get anything from that university. So just make sure you understand what that is. As opposed to some colleges allow you to stack funding, right? So the school says, we'll give you $3,000 tuition scholarship. And then after that, you get a tribal scholarship for 2,000, a Pell Grant for 1,000. They don't take away from your tribal or your Pell Grant. That that ends up being what we call excess funds that are returned to the students so they can use that for housing, for food, for whatnot. And the school's tuition scholarship is still in place. If they stack scholarships, that's the university you want your kids to go to because it makes it more affordable. But not every school can do that. So they do provide at least a last dollar or gap scholarship to help fund what you cannot. Okay, so be aware of that. Ask whether, if you get a scholarship, ask if it's a full ride or tuition only. Those are two different things. Full ride will cover your tuition, your housing, everything. Or tuition only covers your tuition. You might still have to find funding for your books. You might still have to find funding for fees. You might still have to find funding for housing, things like that. So make sure you understand what the school is actually offering you. Ask if the scholarship is guaranteed each year and ask what you need to do to maintain that scholarship. Um, if it's need based, find out about that. If you maybe it's not worth it for you to get a part-time job, to gain extra money if that will take away from your need-based scholarship. That you'll have to balance that out to make sure what works best for you. Um, some scholarships from universities, you have to be residents of that state. Sometimes they limit their funding to tribes within that state. So, there are Utes, Navajos, Shoshones, and Paiutes and Goshutes in Utah, but maybe in Wyoming, they only offer scholarships to the tribes located within their state, right? And not for the ones that are only located in Utah, things like that. So be aware of that. Um, Ask your school that you're going to for a financial aid uh, package breakdown. Let them know exactly what they're paying for. Find out what their funding pays for. Find out how other outside funding you get, either from a third party scholarship or a tribal scholarship. Find out how that all that money is being used to pay for your education. The more you know, the better decisions you're going to be able to make. If you don't understand that paperwork, or if your parents don't understand that paperwork, find someone that does, to sit down with them and really understand what types of funding are available and what's not. Um, this is for American Indian Services. If you guys can uh, take a snapshot of that QR code, and that'll take you to their website, and you can start reviewing that for your students. Okay, but like I said, I'm only using AIS's information because it's very similar to what a lot of different American Indian scholarship organizations offer. Native Forward, that's their website there. They provide scholarships for undergrad, for graduate, and professional degrees. Right, that's their website. American Indian College Fund, scholarships for tribal universities and colleges, and they've recently expanded to cover non-tribal universities or colleges, but their priority is for tribal universities and scholarships. Um, if your students are enrolled, or they can apply for their tribal scholarships. And what they require, the GPA they require, the ACT or SAT they require, their residency requirements, they're all going to be different. So find out what tribes your students, your seniors are enrolled with or affiliated with, and request information on how they can apply for scholarships. Again, just to reiterate, every university has money set aside. Okay, just nearly every university does for Native American students. That hasn't been affected by DEI and multicultural um, um, legislation. They haven't been blocked by those things. Um, and the reason being is because Indian, again, is not a racial status only. It's a political status, a legal status. Um, and so the native programs have survived a lot of what the federal government and state government has been doing here in Utah. So, but look into each of those universities that are local, so you can figure out again what your students are eligible for. I wanted to share this one, and I wanted to make sure that you had information at your fingertips, or at least aware of things right now, because it's going to take a little bit of time to request some of these documents for your students. Um, if you need help on this, talk to your school's career counselors. Uh, I'm going to volunteer, talk to Chuck. He probably knows way more than most of us about how to apply for things and what documents are necessary. Um, but I did want to again say that, I'm really grateful for your work that you're doing. I'm grateful for that cultural reverence that was provided this morning. It reminds us that, how we do things matters and why we do things matters. And, and when she was saying that, when you can buy your sage, you can buy your cedar at the trading post, but also, you know, you can pick them yourselves, and it can be important because you know your feelings when you pick those things. You know the good vibes that needed to be there, the good feelings that need to be there to make that medicine work and be beneficial to you. um, and so I hope this information was helpful. I hope that you can use it in some way, to help your students. And so that's all I got. And I apologize that to run really quick, but I have to drive to another meeting and get there by 10:30. So I got to take off really quick. But if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. Chuck, he knows how to get a hold of me, and so if we have any information to help, we're there for you here at American Indian I'm at Division of Indian Affairs. If your kids go to UVU, reach out. I'm here for help. And if you want, if this was a really fast and you wanted a scholarship organization to talk to you and your students, your Title VI group, I know groups like American Indian Services, they will meet with you and your students to help them understand those requirements too, and answer a lot more questions. But that's all I got. Um,
Okay,
so
very.
Chuck, thank you.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah, you have a good one, guys, and have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you.
Okay, very well said. Very good. Thank you, Dustin. That was great. A lot of information, but this information's important for all of us to know, because we're dealing with students, especially those junior and senior students who are looking for the future. And as time goes on, they'll probably think about you helping them out. So that's a good thing. Now let's move on. Um, I do have a couple things here that Becky's going to put on screen for me, which is the formula grant application sites. Yes, this one here, if you could lower. Each year, um, I have an opportunity to receive some information from you guys when you guys send it in. The information I ask for is the student count and the amount that you're going to be receiving. Now, according to the OIE, uh, I guess guideline or public law, that any site in your state receiving more than $40,000, they have to go through the tribal consultation process. So with that information, what I did was that I have all the school districts that were mentioned in our state with the lead person as a Title VI coordinator and their email address. And those red asterisk marks are those sites that have that you're required to have a title, or you're required to have a tribal consultation with a local tribe. Now, those sites that do not have an asterisk mark, you have that option whether you want to do that or not. And if you do not, if you'd like to have a consultation, let me know, and we will certainly find a local tribe for you. Now, if you could scroll down to the bottom, Becky. Okay. Now again, these tribal sites are not the tribal sites, but the LEA sites that have receiving more than $40,000 or have 50% or more American Indian Alaska Native students recommended tribal consultation. Now, I sent out a couple emails, and I only received maybe two or three that indicated that you'd like to have the tribal consultation set up from my office, which I'm planning to do. And for some of those sites that did not respond to my email, I'm assuming that you're doing your tribal consultation with your school district with a local tribe. Now, uh, if you decide to have that tribal consultation set up by my office, please email me by the end of the day today, and I'll go ahead and set that up, because again, I got to deal with the tribal's time and date. And so far, I've set that up in the area with the Goshute tribe. Now, we have other sites such as Uinta, Washington. Um, we have Iron. These sites are away from this valley, so they oftentimes set up their tribal consultation with their local tribes. But let me know at the end of the day if you decide to have that, and that there I feel much more comfortable that I have an idea, the direction that you're going. Now, the other part is, again, if you don't have a tribal consultation because of the funding, but you like to meet with a tribe, let me know, and I'll certainly set you up with one of the local tribes, and we'll go from there. Now, with this, are there any questions before we move on?
This is Brenda.
Okay.
We had already had our tribal consolidation meetings with the Ute Mountain Ute tribe and then the Navajo Nation.
Okay.
So as soon as we get the meeting, because we gave them the form to sign as we
Okay.
met with them,
Yeah.
but they said that they needed us to just leave the form with them. So as soon as they return that, I will forward that information to you.
Okay. Very good. I like that. I think that you're way ahead of the game, and with that, I think the other one was Ogden. They had the tribal consultation with one of the local tribes too, so they're much more ahead of the game than we are. So, and again, this is all the availability of the tribe. We like to cater to the tribe because this is the time that you consult with them. As we consult with them, there's certain things that we like to showcase, and we like to showcase our program and how we're meeting the needs of our students, and how often do we meet with the tribes if we do. Some of the other information might be funding, it might be the student population, might be graduation rates, the data on student achievement, and there's a lot of things that we can add, but I think the next screen we're going to talk a little bit more about that. So, and let's move on to the next with that form that you're going to be filling out. That's the form. This is just an example, a sample of one. I just put myself as the LEA. What we want to do here is we want to prepare all the information before we have our consultation with our tribe. I think last year, we missed a few steps in terms of information, but I think we should we should have that information available for them. And I'm looking at this in the tribal name, the Confederate tribes. That Confederate tribe is misspelled. So to make sure that don't make the mistake like I did just now. Make sure that all the information is correct. I guess she's gonna. Oh, good, very good. She uh, she helped me out here. And this year we have again. We're going to follow the protocol that we had last year with all those school districts in the valley. We're going to be with the Confederate Tribes of Shoot, and Charlene Pete is our lead with that organization, with the tribe, and then we'll fill out this information. If you could scroll down now. And some of the information that we're going to be sharing is all in red. And I think last year, most of all the sites, they marked all the boxes because these boxes that are being marked has been approved, and it's been vetted by the Title VI also in years past. So, the information that you're going to be sharing, you mark these boxes, and let's scroll down to the end. And the end result here is that you'll have the person's name, my name, and you have the signatures. And I believe that there's a pencil up on top that you could just initial that. So we're trying to make this available for everybody to have this available electronically. Again, I'll send this out, and I think I sent it out in the this past week, but I want to send it out again to make sure that we cover those bases. And what should be in the consultation segment of our conversation with the tribe, what you want to do is I'm going to put some ideas down, and I'm going to be sending it out. It's just as of last year, you want to showcase what you've been doing with your title programs, the student development, student focused, parent groups that you form, and some of the activities that you have for the students as well as parents. And sometimes you go into the community and some of the special projects that you may have. You talk about your professional learning with the community or with parents, with your teachers. So it can be a variety of things. So it's something that, again, you want to showcase this information, and I think this information that you're going to be sharing is very, very important. It's vital because the tribes would like to know. And according to the OIE Easy Grant, you have a box there that it mentions if you had tribal consultation with one of the local tribes, you mark that box. And again, if you didn't receive more than $40,000, you don't have to do that. But if you'd like to do that, make sure you let me know, and they will go from there. Are there any questions on this, the tribal consultation piece? And if I could have an answer at the end of the day, that would make things a whole lot easier for my office as well as the tribe. In my play, my part was to have the Goshu tribe. I like to prep them on this also because they're pretty busy. It's not it's they're representing the whole nation of where they come from. So they're very busy on the busy track. Okay, if there are no questions, let's in number B with our if there are no questions, I'm going to do this monitoring. It's going to be a desktop, which is just going to be virtually. So I'm going to be setting that up probably next week, and I'm going to set a time, and hopefully you can and I would meet that time where we could meet and I'll prep you on the things that I'm looking for, so you'll have a pretty good idea of what I'm looking for. And this is going to be all virtual instead of me coming in person. Now, for the surrounding areas, like Ogden, Davis, Salt Lake, Provo, um, Alpine, Nebo, those will be in person, but the ones that are far, a little away from Salt Lake, that we'll have that virtually. But I'll go ahead and set that up, and we can have that conversation virtually. Okay. Are there any questions on that? Okay. Um, the last item here for our little conversation with the Title 6 site updates. Do you guys have any updates that you like to share?
I have an update. We are working on a Navajo language app and
Oh,
with Thornton Language Company. And so we just completed one for White Mesa Ute. You can actually download the White Mesa Ute app on the App Store for Apple phones
yeah,
or
yeah,
Android. And it's available if you want to take a look at it. It's just under White Mesa Ute. That's the
good.
one that we just completed. It took us 2 years to get that completed because
Yeah,
we had to work with 5 um, Ute elders in
yeah,
the community, and
yes,
those are probably the only elders that are still speaking the language in the community that did the
yeah,
recording for us. So,
yeah,
so now we're working on the Navajo language app, and I'm working with our Native Youth Council and then also our heritage language teachers, and we're coming up with 600 phrases of what we think the youth would want to know
yeah,
about the language and what they would like to speak. And so we're putting that all together, and the end product would be a language app for basic conversation. We wanted
yeah,
to leave all of the cultural and traditional stories out of it just because of AI. And there's
yeah,
just so much going on. We don't want any of the ceremonial cultural stories to be a part of that just because of that. We
yeah,
feel like those things are better left kept
yeah.
through traditional storytelling. But yeah, we're excited about this project with our grant funding that we had with our Native Youth Community Project grant. And so this will also be available to anyone who downloads the app after the app is completed, because it was completed with federal grant funding. So anyways, I just wanted to let y'all know that that's what we're working on.
Outstanding. That's great. Very, very excellent, because I think this is important, especially when we always indicate that we want to preserve the native language. And this is one piece that I think we could uh, we could take advantage of. It's being very, very careful of not disclosing some of the ceremonial pieces either. So
Yeah, I
because
think we're seeing younger and younger parents that are not able to speak the language, and we were thinking the app will allow them to download the information at home and be able to utilize the app to learn the language on their own terms. So hopefully that will spark an interest in our young people. And kizadigi AI using Jonado o yuji han hadlong dot na antien ako adigi ayo bits on that the cotton had then latte showing kachanedo and so ketan linigi do anid da kaigi amado jatan linigi do yo the neg ejia da get da ako a could ban kita ban sede case though other band-aid oi could delia. So we're hoping that this project will really benefit those learners that we're trying to reach.
And John, yeah, Brenda, that was good. I think, I truly believe that too. We also have a hand up, Eileen and then Lorne.
Yat
Oh,
can you hear me?
oh,
Okay, yat Um, I just wanted to share the information about our multicultural fashion show that we are doing. You know, we're out of Spanish Fork, Nebo School District. And there's a lot of learning and educating you can do just by the way that people dress. You know, our dress, the way we present ourselves is an expression, a visual language telling the world the culture, the community that we come from, our values, and all of that. Your hair can tell a lot about the community you come from. Your jewelry can tell about the culture that you come from and the significance of these different things, the way our hairstyle is, our jewelry is, why we wear the clothes that we wear. We are doing this on March 26th. It's a Thursday evening from 6 to 8 o'clock in the evening. And we're holding in a beautiful, brand new auditorium that can house and seat up to 1,000 people here in Spanish Fork. And I just want to invite as many of my community to come out and support our youth. I had Dr. Foster send out a flyer that you can scan. Once you scan it, it will take you into a website where you can register and be a part of it. Or if you want to share a table that shows artifacts or maybe a cradle board or different things that you want to share that teaches about your community, you're welcome to do that. And it's all free. Everything is free on this day. You can be a model. You can share do an educational table, or you can be a designer and maybe have some of your clothes be showcased and all that. So today is the last day to register for the opening. Make sure that everyone, if you can, go into that website and register that you are coming. We need people to register so that we can keep account. You know how it is with federal grants and the other grants that we do. You have to have an attendance. So tell how many are coming with you, and that ways we can help, you know, our organizations to be able to be counted for funding and all of that. I just wanted to share that information. We're starting, Nebo School District is starting to get ready for our garden at Thanksgiving Point. We do a community garden at the Curiosity Farm area. We're planting tribal seeds, and the kids are taking care of it. We're into sovereignty and foods and medicines. So we're really hitting that in summer school this summer. We're also getting ready for the criteria. We're sending out the old criteria forms where counselors and teachers can nominate students that have excelled in athletics, in leadership, in academics, in attendance, in being a part of language class or things like that. We're going to have our awards ceremony. So just a little bit of information about what we're doing in Nebo. Thank you.
Okay,
Um,
thank you. Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Larnie.
I we the Salt Lake City School District has an event coming up in May. It's Native Youth Day. Anybody outside the Salt Lake City School District of students and families are welcome to come. It's a lot of tabling. There's going to be round dancing, uh, just dancing in general, and not just Native programs that are tabling, just city programs also. Yeah, just anybody's welcome to come. Just May 2nd. It is a Saturday, and I can get that out to Dr. Foster on the email, and sure you guys can look at the flyer. And if you guys want to volunteer, just on the QR code, and then there'll be a link with it if you guys want to put some time in, or your students can do that as well. And then I do have a program that we're trying to get our students, mainly the girls, to help out with the this new program that came up, and um, trying to collaborate with our girls. I believe they're called the Girls Society, and I just want to introduce it's Tammy Platero. She has some great information of what they do uh, for their program. Yeah, Tammy.
Okay. Now, with that, the Native Youth Day, do you have a date on that?
Yeah, May 2nd.
Okay. May 2nd is a special day. I like that because it's my birthday too. Well,
Oh,
anyway, that's beside the point.
we'll make you a cake then.
Okay. Anybody else?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, here's Tammy Platero that she's gonna introduce her program
Okay.
that we're trying to collaborate with. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, thank you, Lorne, and thanks for giving me time to speak for a little bit. So as Lorne said, we're trying to figure this out, but I'm from MMIR Utah. So we were awarded the Indigenous Justice Circle grant. I'm going to put this link in chat. So what it is this Indigenous Justice Circle runs an Imagine curriculum, and what we're aiming for is girls aged 8 to 14. And so we have classes, they've already started, we've had 3 so far, but we're going to do every other week. So for example, next week on the 18th, we're going to have ribbon skirt making. And then we have cultural gardening and traditional foods on April 1st. We have healthy relationships and regalia. And then our last session is focused on safety. And then a field trip at the end to the Natural History Museum. So we've written a little bit on our website, and we could do more. I'm just trying to get the word out because this is a great curriculum that they've created, and the Tracy Aviary Nature Center is hosting it. So we're able to use their space, which is really generous, and just want to get the word out there. And I can post more of our I'll say Instagram or advertisements and flyers. So I think it could be a great opportunity for the students if they're interested. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I think just to reinforce that, if you may send it to my office and I can send it out again, if it, if you feel comfortable with that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think it's a great resource for all girls in the outside of Salt Lake area. and bordered the Salt Lake area. So I think this is a great resource for all our girls.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Hey, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Anybody else? Okay. The Urban Indian Center is Penelope here. I thought I saw her name come up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, I have a few updates, especially with our community events at the Urban Indian Center. If you're not familiar with our programs here or the center itself, we are on 1300 South, 120 West in Salt Lake City. Our website is uicsl.org. And let's see. So we do have a town hall gathering coming up March 20th. This is open to anyone, 6 p.m. to 7:30. And this is an opportunity for all our community members to be able to interact with our healthcare providers, our new clinic, but also to engage in a conversation about the center here at the main location. But that's March 20th. We will have a light dinner and an activity to go along with that. And then our other event, which is our clinic opening. So this is a clinic open house, which is April 16th at our Murray Clinic location, which is in, which is, sorry, I've got to pull that over, which is 5450 South Green Street, Murray, Utah. And it's at 10 a.m. to noon. And so we'll have touring of the clinic, but also another opportunity for our community members to learn about our services. We hired a pharmacist, so we'll be having a pharmacy on site soon. So a lot of those new services are going to be up and rolling. And one thing too is that we do have a family programs, which is our youth program. And our new program is Strengthening Families. It is designed for parents and youth 10 to 14. And so this is an opportunity for our parents to learn communication skills, but also teach the youth and help them build skills to communicate with their parent or their caregiver. And so we feed them every time they meet with us for 7 weeks. We have some awesome incentives, and we're trying to recruit youth within Salt Lake County, but we also extend our services to as far as Nebo on up to Brigham City, to Tooele. And so because we serve 5 counties, we don't want to leave out anyone who is interested in our programs. It is at an evening-based program, so this is great for those who are looking to have an activity after school. One thing too is what we'll do is we'll send flyers to Dr. Foster to ensure that you can get those posted, share them on your newsletters, but we also share everything on our Facebook and Instagram site. If there's any questions, I can take any questions, but if not, I look forward to the next meeting.
Very good. Hey, thank you, Penelope. Good information. You know, having a pharmacy in your center, that says a lot. That comes a long ways.
That is a
It's kind of
huge
almost
deal.
a governmental thing, and that's
Right.
it's I
And
commend you
much
guys.
needed, right?
Oh
Much
yeah,
needed.
yeah.
Actually, and then we're going to eventually have an optometry, so on-site
Wow.
optometrist along with eye care. Um, you wouldn't believe how many youth in our communities who are lacking eyeglasses, and so that's something that is essential.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah, yeah.
thanks for
Wow, that's
having
great.
me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Penelope. You know, this is
Penelope,
kind of
what is the start date on that? Sorry to interrupt. On the
Oh, for the
pharmacy?
pharmacy? So we just hired the pharmacist. And
Okay.
so if you come to our open house, maybe you'll find that out. So,
If we're
we're-
not able to, will you be sending out a
yeah,
flyer? Okay.
yeah. I think
uh,
once we figure out if they're going, when they open the pharmacy, then we can actually launch that info.
Okay.
So stay tuned for sure.
yeah,
We're so excited. I can't wait to share that with my families.
yeah,
You can
yeah.
share all our flyers.
Yeah, right. Thank you. Thank you very much. This is good information.
You're welcome.
Eileen, you have your hand up again. Okay, I guess not. Any other updates from your site that you like anything to share? Okay, if not, again, I'd like to thank you guys for all your work that you do for your students. You know, it's something that I think some of the opportunities that you share, some of the opportunities that you have for your students, you know, that really says a great deal of where your heart is at, because the world and the educational system, you know, the things around us is changing so fast. You know, we're getting into this era of AI now. You know, sometimes we don't know if that's going to be good or bad. You know, and I think the more information we know about that, the better that we'll do. And these are opportunities for our students to learn much more about this, because as we get you know, we get a little older, you know, uh, for me that the AI is not it's not completely full, or not completely true. Um, you know, just one example, you know, I had a couple documents that I was working on. After I finished my document, I noticed that there was a little bar up on top of my document, and I looked through that document. It was a AI that summarized what I wrote, and I read through that, and there was some really important parts that the AI didn't catch. So, you know, my conclusion was that not that's not a complete foolproof doc, or not foolproof communication that oftentimes that people look at. I think we have to be very, very careful of that and how they interpret our you know, our writing and the things that we are putting out to our parents and our groups. Hey, is there any other you'd like to close with? But for me, you know, thank you guys. Yeah, sin Chicago. Hanso Kagi. Didi Behansen sto. Yeah. Um, Now is before we leave, thank you. Is and you guys can leave now. Is Thomasia on here somewhere that I'd like to talk with her real quick before we leave? Other than that, we'll
I'm
see you
here.
guys the next time around. Okay. All right. Thank you guys. Thomasia, stay on for a while.
Okay.
Okay. Well, Thomasia, how you doing down there? Are you doing okay?
I'm I'm doing good. I've got
Okay.
my
Hey.
nephew here today.
Oh yeah. Well, get your hands full. Hey,